In October 2020, a University of Washington professor and avid outdoorsman set out on a solo overnight hike in Mount Rainier National Park. He was last seen on October 9th, and when he failed to return the next day, a massive search effort began. To this day, his disappearance remains an unsolved mystery, a haunting reminder of how even experienced hikers can vanish into the vast wilderness of our national parks. Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Elise, and I am your host. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. Let's jump right into this episode that takes place in Mount Rainier National Park. So, I have been here a couple of times, and I love it. I think it's such a beautiful national park. I'm going to start with negative reviews. So the first review says, "Who doesn't want to drive across the country only to be turned away at the gate by a smug jerk because you need a reservation to get into a park that you already paid for with your tax dollars? They don't even post it anywhere noticeable on their website. The National Park Service and the government are a joke." The next review says, "Dogs aren't allowed on trails here. You know what my dog doesn't do when hiking trails? He doesn't litter, carve initials into trees, spray paint rocks and signs. He doesn't leave used wadded up tissue in bushes. He doesn't hike around with a Bluetooth speaker blaring loud music. National parks are trash in America." Now, that review, obviously, I agree with it somewhat. Obviously, I know why dogs are not allowed in national parks, and I agree with that as well, but there are so many rude people who go to national parks that ruin the experience for others. So I totally get that disgruntled review. Then we have Dawn, who left a review that says, "I flew 5 hours to Seattle, drove 2 hours to sit in traffic for 1 hour near the entrance to find out you need reservations to enter a state park. What kind of pot smoking lawmaker thought this was a good idea?" Well, it's not a state park, it's a national park, and it's on all the websites. Someone said, "Way, way, way too many cars and people," in all caps. And then Sam said, "Absolutely amazing," in all caps. "The park is well kept and the views are gorgeous. Definitely worth a trip and the best first of 5 stars." So I don't know if they might not understand Sam, if he doesn't understand like 1 star is bad, 5 stars are good, but that was a really great review. But he did only leave 1 star. So, anyways, let's start about a little bit of background about this national park. Mount Rainier was established on March 2nd, 1899. And when I say Mount Rainier, I mean the entire national park. It's just over 230,000 acres, and in 2022, it had over 1.6 million visitors. Now, 97% of the park is preserved as wilderness under the National Wilderness Preservation System as Mount Rainier Wilderness, which is a designation it received in 1988. It was the first national park created from a national forest. So, Mount Rainier itself stands at over 14,000 feet above sea level, and it's definitely an icon in the Washington landscape. Mount Rainier is a active volcano, and if you've listened to me before, you know that we have visited Mount Rainier before. But yeah, it's a volcano and it is the most glaciated peak in the contiguous United States, and it spawns 5 major rivers. There are subalpine wildflower meadows that ring the icy volcano, while ancient forest cloaks Mount Rainier's lower slopes. There's a ton of wildlife, and honestly, wildlife sighting in this national park is just so, so magical. Let's talk about the first people. The name of the mountain itself in Lachute is Tacoma, or it's pronounced Tacoma. So I've heard both, and I'm going to assume both are correct, but people might get mad at me saying Tacoma, Tacoma, whatever. We know I'm talking about the same thing. Now, it does have the same name as the nearby city in the Puget Sound region, and the earliest evidence of human activity in this area, which is now Mount Rainier National Park, is a projectile point dated to circa 4000 to 5800 BP, which is before present. And this was found along Bench Lake Trail. So that is the first section of the Snow Lake Trail. Um, there are lots of people indigenous people who lived here. These are their homelands, and they were forcefully pushed out so that this could be made into a national park. Now, someone that a lot of people have very different feelings over, John Muir. He was instrumental in preserving this place. Take that statement however you want to. And he first visited in 1888, okay? And he really loved this place, and as we all know, it's very inflammatory to talk about John Muir when we talk about national parks, so whatever you think, I'm good with. There are more than 960 vascular plant species, and more than 260 non-vascular plant species have been identified and cataloged within this national park. There are a lot of animals, and some of those include the cougar, black bear, raccoon, coyote, bobcat, beaver, fox, porcupine, skunk, of course, deer, and then smaller things like pika and shrews and mountain goats and elks. And those are not small animals, but they are, obviously, we know that they don't eat humans. So I just wanted to bring that up because today's case is a disappearance, and this person has never been found. So I did want to hit on the larger animals that might possibly have something to do with today's story. In terms of weather and climate, Mount Rainier National Park is basically a Mediterranean influenced human continental climate or subarctic climate, depending on where you are in the park, like elevation wise. The National Park Service also says that Paradise, which is a specific area of the park, is the snowiest place on Earth where snowfall is measured regularly. So, they get a lot of snow in this national park, and I've never been in the winter or the fall, but I would love to see it all covered in snow. It would be so magical. Mount Rainier National Park is rich in the locations that are designated on the National Register of Historic Places. There are 42 locations within Mount Rainier National Park, including four National Historic Landmarks. And if you didn't know, there's basically a mass grave on Mount Rainier. One of the places that I visited in Mount Rainier National Park is the Marine Memorial because I had learned about it on a podcast. The Marine Memorial is located along West Side Road and can be only reached by hiking or biking. The first 3 miles of West Side Road are open to vehicles during the summer season with parking at Dry Creek. And it's basically a large boulder inset with a bronze plaque. And it commemorates or remembers the 32 U.S. Marines that died when their plane crashed into the South Tahoma Glacier on December 10th, 1946. Due to hazardous conditions of the crash location, their remains were never recovered. So in 1946, it was the worst accident and numbers killed aboard an aircraft in the United States aviation history and remains Mount Rainier's greatest tragedy. So I highly encourage you to visit that plaque if you are able to. It's really, really a touching piece of history of Mount Rainier. A lot of sources online say that Mount Rainier National Park is the most dangerous national park in America, or at least the most dangerous mountain in America. Like I said, it's actually an active volcano or what's called a stratovolcano. Estimates put its formation at around 32 million years ago, but the picturesque snow capped Washington state residents and visitors know today really came into being about 500,000 years ago. And this is according to naturalist Jeff and then Tonlese Lap, author of Tahoma and Its People. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. That was not easy. So, Mount Rainier National Park, it's really a paradise, and it's only fitting that some of the park is called paradise. It's great for anyone who loves to hike, camp, and view wildlife. There are over 275 miles of maintained trails, catering to hikers of all skill levels, from hard hikes to short, family friendly nature walks to challenging multi day treks like the Wonderland. There's something for everyone. Popular easy trails lead to stunning wildflower meadows, breathtaking viewpoints, and even glaciers. But not every visit ends well for hundreds of visitors. And we're going to talk about one of those in specific today. Sorry, I had to sneeze. So, one of my favorite trails in this park is Silver Forest Trail. And it's on the Sunset side. Um, I actually preferred Sunset area over Paradise, even though I think Paradise is more popular. Sunset was less crowded and the views were just as good. So if you ever get a chance, this is a really easy trail. I actually had my engagement pictures taken on it a few years ago, and it's called Silver Forest Trail, and it is beautiful and so super, super easy with amazing views. So, today we're going to be discussing Sam Duvall. And he was an avid hiker who had traveled around the US and the Himalayas in Nepal. He was a Stanford graduate who attended medical school at Harvard and received his PhD in medical anthropology from UC Berkeley in 2018. So in 2020, he was 33 years old and he was enjoying his life despite the pandemic surging all around the world. Let's talk about who Sam is as a person. So, he actually had a lot of outdoors experience. And during his time in the Joint Medical Anthropology Program, Sam went on to do fieldwork in Uganda concerning the Lord's Resistance Army, which is a militant Ugandan group infamous for war crimes. So his work here later led him to writing a book in February 2018 that critiques the concept of humanity, and the book is titled Against Humanity: Lessons from the Lord's Resistance Army. He started teaching at the University of Washington Anthropology Department in June 2020, and he was an assistant professor. He contributed to the birth of a new field, radical medicine, and this is something that I had never heard of until I started looking into Sam's case. And basically, Sam had worked with scholars, clinicians, and students and patients so that they could reimagine different forms and practices of medicine. And he was a true visionary. He had a vision and he was making it happen. And he actually co founded RadMed, which was an inclusive collective at the Berkeley Center for Social Medicine. Associates and colleagues, they recalled that Sam was fearless in his willingness to question authority and the conventional wisdom about how to be both a moral intellectual and of use to those most burdened by neglect and structural discrimination in the world. So Sam was extremely empathetic and caring, but also wasn't afraid to ask questions and dig deeper. Sam's sister, Dina, said that he had an uncompromising moral compass and a staunch commitment to pursuing justice and anti racism in medicine. He was like basically salt of the earth. He was walking the walk, talking the talk, and trying to make a difference in any way he could. And on Friday, October 9th, 2020, Sam left for a solo hike and was supposed to return the next day, and he was doing this hike in Mount Rainier National Park. He was spotted that day on Mother Mountain Loop Trail near Lake Mowich in the park. Now, apparently, he was well equipped for an overnight hike, so he had a tent, a sleeping bag, snow gear, rain gear, a cell phone, and a charger. He was an experienced hiker under challenging conditions, but he went missing And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So, the Mother Mountain Loop Trail is a popular route in the northwest corner of Mount Rainier National Park. Now, people do it as a day hike, or they do it as an overnight hike or a trail run. And if you're gonna camp there overnight, you have to get permits. So, this is what the Washington Trails Association says about this area of the park and this trail. From the Mowich Lake Campground, walk alongside the southeast side of the lake, passing a small shelter before turning away from the lake and heading towards Knapsack Pass, 1.2 miles from the trailhead. Along the way to Knapsack Pass, you'll climb gradually and pass footpaths leading to Fay Peak and First Mother Mountain. Descending out of Knapsack Pass, meander through open meadows and past more footpaths, leading to Mount Pleasant and a network of trails through Spray Park. Though the trail here leads you around Spray Park, you'll get to hike right through Mist Park and Seattle Parks. Make time to enjoy the flowers and scenery here, especially if you're visiting in the spring. Now, obviously, this trail has a lot of spur trails off of it, and I think that is a huge factor in what happened to Sam. Sam was reported missing on October 12th after he didn't return home. And if you're counting, that is 3 days later. Now, I don't really understand why there would have been a delay in reporting him missing, especially if he was experienced. um, he would have made sure to tell someone if he weren't home by the 10th to report him missing. But I don't know. I mean, you never go out into nature and on a hike, and you never just assume like I might go missing today, or I might get hurt, or I might get lost. You don't think that. You think everything's going to be fine, and that's when comfortability can become dangerous. Shortly after he was reported missing, they found his car at the trailhead and they started a massive search because this is in October. It's already going to start snowing in this very high elevation. So, Mount Rainier National Park Service search and rescue teams, they conducted an intense 9-day search. They did find his water bottle a few days later after they started searching, but nothing else was found. The search included park rangers, volunteer hikers, and helicopter crews from the National Park Service and U.S. Air Force, and they searched for Sam on the ground and by air. The search area ranged from 2,000 to 5,000 feet in elevation and included dense forests, rocky terrain, subalpine meadows, and bodies of water. Now, I did say extremely high elevation. Personally, to me, this is not extremely high elevation, but because of the climate and the location of this park, it does start to snow early in the season. So, 5 days later, on October 17th, when the weather was good, a 50-person search and rescue team scoured the area. And the next day, the team was limited to just 26 searchers because of poor weather. On the 19th, only 6 people were able to go out. And then on October 20th, 26 people search and rescue, they went out to search again in the area where Sam was believed to be hiking. But again, there was poor weather, and even more poor weather on October 21st and 22nd, sorry. And this poor weather really limited the ability of rescuers to continue searching on the ground. And the search operation was suspended because they presumed Sam to be dead at this point. Now, obviously, Sam's family was really distressed that the search had been called off, and his family actually started a petition on October 22nd asking that rescue teams continue searching for him for at least 72 more hours. The National Park Service announced that crews had resumed the search for Sam on the ground after the request from the family. That's something that I haven't seen happen that often in cases like these. But honestly, at this time in October, winter storms had covered much of the area with snow, and temperatures dropped below freezing even at the lower elevations. Just a day after Sam set off for his hike, there was a storm that washed out a crossing he would have used to traverse the Carbon River. So it's like continuous bad thing, bad thing, bad thing, bad thing. And I feel like this is what we see often in cases like Sam's where we might have been able to find him, but then bad weather, there's a storm, there's something happening with a search party. And it really makes these cases so much more heartbreaking because if they could have maybe caught a break with the weather, I don't know, would things have ended differently? I think that's where all of our minds go, especially the family members' minds. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but in 2020, our national park system was honestly like kind of stretched out. And when I say that, I mean like search and rescues because so many people were getting outside and people that were unexperienced were getting outside. There were so many more search and rescues and deaths and tragic accidents that happened within national parks during that year. And specifically at Mount Rainier National Park in 2020, there were a record 60 searches and several deaths that happened in this park that same year. Despite all the extensive searching that was done to find Sam, all they found was his water bottle. They never found anything else. Sam wasn't found, his backpack, none of his gear was found, except that singular water bottle. That was the only clue that Sam left behind in his disappearance. I found a comment on Strange Outdoors, and a reader of theirs, Luke, wrote this. My friend and I did this route a month after his disappearance. He also said that the map is incorrect and it does not show the entire loop. Luke goes on to say, there's no way he could have been injured or killed and not found if he'd stayed on the trail. There are really only two potentially dangerous spots on the route, which is very safe and easy to follow. The first is the crossing of the Carbon River that you mentioned. It had a log across it by the time we were there, but even without one, it might have been possible to ford. And even if he fell in and drowned, there were plenty of snags where he would have been spotted. Beyond that, the only other dangerous spot is a slick crossing above a waterfall. But again, if something happened, he would have been easily found. There's not a lot of steep drop-offs or other places to fall along the trail. Given that, I think he must have deviated from his planned route and had an accident somewhere else. Definitely a mystery, and I hope they eventually find him. So that was an interesting comment to find because I've never done this trail, and just reading about a trail online doesn't give a really good, accurate picture or description about the terrain on a trail because the difficulty levels and terrain are very subjective to different people. What I might think is easy, someone else might think is challenging, and vice versa. So Luke's comment was very interesting that he said it was easy to find. And I probably, like, even though I've never been on this trail, if other readers are saying like he must have gone off trail, then I think that's probably what happened. And that's what happens in a lot of these cases. And if you're wondering where his water bottle was found on the trail, his water bottle was found on the ground on the trail about 3/4 down the trail that he was doing. So where did he go? Where is Dr. Sam Dubal? I don't know. And I really hope we have answers one day because this is one of the cases that happened in 2020 that I think really shocked a lot of people. It made news all over. There were huge headlines about it. I'm sure you've seen Sam's picture. I can just imagine in my mind right now. And I think the reason why people view this as a mysterious disappearance is that he was experienced and he completely disappeared, and all that was found was a water bottle. So it's just interesting that the water bottle was found on the trail and not off the trail. So we really have no idea past where that water bottle was found, where he could have gone or where he was. Now, obviously, Sam's family was devastated, as were all of his colleagues and everybody in his life who'd he came into contact with and changed their lives in some way. And actually, in 2021, a fellowship was started in honor of him. The Sam Duvall Fellowship in Critical Cultural and Medical Anthropology honors the legacy of Sam Duvall, MD, PhD. His family generously established a fellowship following his tragic disappearance. The Duvall's family's gift, combined with the support from friends, family, and community members, matched with funds from an anonymous donor, will create a $1 million endowment to provide full support for doctoral students in the anthropology department and the social science division at UC Berkeley's College of Letters and Science. Professor Charles Hirschkind, anthropology department chair, noted, quote, "This fellowship will not only ensure that UC Berkeley's medical anthropology program will be able to maintain its tradition of cutting-edge research in this significant field of inquiry, but it will also give crucial support to a current of critical scholarship with its broader field, one exemplified in Sam's work that is challenging and revising many of the discipline's core assumptions." Sorry, that was a mouthful to read, and my throat got super dry during that. But basically, his family, an anonymous donor, the community, they all came together and they raised $1 million to provide financial support for students that are going into the same thing that Sam went into, something he truly cared about and spent a lot of his life researching and being an advocate for. And that's really it on this case. I really back in 2020, I had just started my, travel healthcare, career, and I remember seeing this on Instagram, and I was just really hoping and waiting and praying that he would be found, and nothing has been found since. There have been no sightings, no one's come across any remains, no one's come across his gear, and I'm honestly so curious as to what happened to Dr. Sam Duvall. The disappearance of Dr. Sam Duvall is one of those cases that lingers, not just because of the questions that remain, but because of who he was. He was a young doctor, an anthropologist, teacher, and humanitarian, a person whose life was dedicated to helping others. And he was gone without a trace on a trail inside of one of the most beautiful yet unforgiving landscapes in the Pacific Northwest. Mount Rainier National Park is a place of contrasts. It's breathtaking and serene, but it can change in an instant. The weather, the terrain, the isolation, they remind us that nature doesn't bend to human will. And maybe that's part of what draws people there in the first place: the challenge, the solitude, the sense of something larger than ourselves. Search teams combed miles of rugged terrain, helicopters scanned the ridgelines, and his family has never stopped fighting for answers. Yet, the mountain kept its silence. To this day, no sign of Sam has ever been found. And his story is a reminder: when we step into these wild places, we are visitors in a realm that doesn't play by our rules. Preparation, awareness, respect, they aren't just precautions, they're acts of reverence for this landscape and for those who never came back. And if you head into the backcountry, you have to tell someone where you're going. Check the weather, pack for the unexpected. The wilderness can be a place of peace and discovery, but it also demands humility. For Sam Duvall, the mountain remains both his mystery and his monument, and maybe somewhere on those slopes, the wind still carries his story. Sam was last seen October 9th, 2020. Sam is 5 foot 9 inches tall, 160 pounds, with black hair and a short black beard. He was wearing blue downshell North Face jacket and a navy blue North Face raincoat. If you know anything about Sam Duvall's disappearance, you can contact Mount Rainier National Park within the National Park Service at 360-569-6612. As always, recreate responsibly and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. You can also join us on Patreon for early and ad free content. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.